love it. They're like German Dutch porn. They just love that.
Literally.
German Dutch porn.
Yeah,
Yeah,
German
it's,
people from the
it's same,
Netherlands. Whatever.
Yeah.
Justin's great with geography.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I will talk about the greatest podcast that ever existed. And then I'll also mention Basement Discourse, which you're watching right now. I actually don't know what the best podcast is, but this one's pretty good
highest
because
rated would be...
Yeah, no.
Don't say it.
Nah.
No, because then
Beep
they're
it.
all going to jump ship. I know it.
Beep him just for thinking about that. Anyway, I'm Jace, the looks. There's Brady, who's the hair, and Justin, who's not the hair.
Not hair.
I like it.
So
That's cool.
today we're talking about the death of Pokemon. And by that, I actually mean the birth of Pokemon clones. This isn't necessarily a new thing, but there's been some bangers out lately, and we've got our hands on 2 of them, and we're going to talk about them today. First up, we're going to talk Cassette Beasts. Now, this is a game that came out really recently, I think 25th of May. It may have come out earlier on PC and 25th of May for all the console weasels. So
Correct.
It's out on PC, Xbox, and Switch. So if you have a PlayStation, lol, get... Now...
As usual.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody wants to deal with that. But Cassette Beasts is very much in a similar vein to Pokemon, in the sense that you are collecting monsters, beasts, what have you, and then it focuses around RPG elements and turn-based combat. However, with Cassette Beasts, that's sort of where a lot of the similarities stop. It has that core concept, but it's then wrapped it in its own really unique take. First thing I'll mention before Brady opens his mouth is it is technically an isekai. I'll let him have that one.
Yes. And everyone in the game has also been isekai'd into that world as well.
Yes.
At some point or another.
And if you play far enough, you learn that it's not just the people. Which actually, now that I think of it, is actually kind of an interesting concept. So one thing that's always annoyed me about Pokemon is that they kind of needed to retcon their own lore to add more Pokemon. Because when it first started, they're like, oh, we share the world with Pokemon and we've found 150 types. And then they're like, oh yeah, this fucking island that we've lived on for 100 years has 6 billion Pokemon on it. Never saw them before. You can literally jump from here to there, but never seen any of them before.
My favorite
Is
bit
that
about
literally
that
it? It
is
was a island.
It's just they've just added new islands and they're like, ooh, all these new Pokemon. But they all
it's not even that far. It's like a state in Australia. Some of them are connected.
Jesus
The first 2
Christ.
regions are connected by walkable distance.
Yeah.
Because you do. Yeah. My favorite bit about that is the professors, especially Oak, because Oak goes, I've spent my whole life trying to document all 150 Pokemon. And then you finish that journey, start the next game, and you're like, there's 250? Couldn't even find 150? There's 250? And now we're up to
Dedicated
800, and
his
you're
life
like,
to
man,
it.
Oak, what did Oak do his whole life? He
He just
couldn't
didn't
even
have a
find
car,
just the
bro.
ones... he couldn't even find the ones near him. He
was
didn't
just
even
in the-
know
in
there
the
was others
radius
next
of his
door.
house. Maybe he had an anklet bracelet on and he could only go 10. That's
He's on-
probably why he hung around with a bunch of kids.
Oh my
It all makes
god!
sense.
We had to can the previous episode because Justin threw in a pedophile joke, and 10 seconds in, he's gone again.
Hey, look,
This
it
one
works.
was well executed, though.
It
I'll allow it.
totally works, right?
But they retcon a bunch in Pokemon while we're on the subject.
Yeah,
From
correct.
the food that gets eaten. In the anime at first, you see things that aren't Pokemon sometimes.
Yeah,
there's
birds.
water and there's a magic carp, but then there's a fish.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, what?
Oh,
Yeah, there's normal
And
birds
birds.
in the
Yeah.
first couple episodes as well.
So are they
Yeah.
saying that like every creature is actually a Pokemon?
Nowadays,
It's not just like a regular.
Now.
Why, I guess when you got Garbage-mon coming out of your trash can,
Yeah.
I guess everything's a freaking Pokemon.
Wait,
Man,
you're
you'd be
freaked out by
scared to
that.
go
Have you
to the
seen the
office.
keychain?
You would be scared to go to your office. You pick up your pen and you'd be like, all right, get out your Pokeball, test it. No, this just a pen. Just a pen. Go to pick
Have you
up
seen
a
the
piece of paper
keychain,
and write on it. You're
Justin?
like, oh, that's a Pokemon.
well, what if it gets more? What if you reach into your bedside table? Your fleshlight's a Pokemon. See, this is what
So
you've
that
done,
cassette
bro.
base.
So now we're jumping into bestiality with Pokemon.
No. That's a whole different thing. Okay, technically in cassette beasts, because they're called beasts, I guess that would be. But anyway, moving on. My point was
yeah.
that because cassette beasts, technically a lot of what happens in New Wirral is about things falling from another dimension, and they're unrelated dimensions. So if you've spoken to some of the trainers, they talk about their history, and it's very clearly an alternate dimension from our own. Like I just ran into a guy tonight that was talking about how I think it was like the fairy treaty with the UN in 1948 or something like that. And I was like, and like the
Yes,
historians,
that classic.
yeah, the historians reference like that. And I'm like, that's kind of cool. But because of that, they could keep dumping more and more beasts in.
Yeah.
And
So they built this idea around the idea that they could expand on this.
Absolutely,
And,
and
go further with it.
they haven't
So
cornholed
it's either
themselves.
multi-universes or you are just terrible with your history, and there was actually a Fey treaty with the UN.
No, there's definitely
Just saying.
different dimensions. If you've played far enough, you'd actually know that. So
It's become clear at the point
we'll
I'm
see.
at that that's sort of a deal.
yeah, and
Yeah.
Brady
No,
doesn't even
so
play for
the-
law.
No. I can't find it when it's in my face.
I'm sure
But
what
the-
Brady does play for, because he doesn't try and catch them all either.
Yeah,
so what do you
I
do?
know.
Just go there to like bash kids and like.
He just tries to see the end credits. That is literally it.
That's pretty much it. My goal is get to those credits however fast I can, dodging all gameplay possible.
Don't know
The
what
thing-
happened.
The cool
but
thing
I finished it.
I don't think we've explained why it's called Cassette Beast, so maybe we should delve into the whole
Yeah,
theme laid over this game is musical.
Yes. Which is interesting
Yeah,
because they got a composer, Joel Bayless, I think his name is. Comments, correct me. But he composed an amazing score that's very synthy, but sort of like an 80s rock vibe. It's a gorgeous soundtrack, and everything's sort of thematically retro, but not over the top. Like, it's not like everything you look at is like, remember the 80s? But it's all got an 80s, like a kind of natural 80s vibe, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't feel. Sometimes even Stranger Things, I felt like they were just constantly reminding me when it was, even though I sort of got it really early on. It doesn't do that. Like,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Like, oh, this is 80s
just
themed,
subtle
but like
things,
it's
yeah.
not. It's not. You know, we don't need to consistently be about it. And then, I guess the other major point of difference, apart from like the music just being a banger, unless you want to talk about that a bit more, you don't capture beasts and then enslave them to do your
Yeah.
bidding.
Yeah, and so this is like a twofold thing because I really love what they've done with this system. So instead of enslaving an animal, which, you know, as the obligatory vegan here, I have to strongly urge not to do. Instead of enslaving anything or anything like that, you don't capture them, nothing like that. What you're doing is you're actually recording their essence. And in doing that, you don't level up your tape or anything like that. You are the thing that is leveled, which in the instance of people who've done Nuzlocke challenges, this is infinitely more valuable because when you get a Pokemon or a Nexomon, as we'll get to later on, you've got to level that creature to get that to a point where, you know, it's at a level that can fight your current enemies. In this game, it's based purely on you. So it's how far you've gotten and the experience you've earned. And then your beasts are assigned to you, and then you can like increase their skills and stuff by working with them. But all that does is add the ability to have more attacks for that particular beast and unlock those attacks automatically, which are in the form of stickers.
And you can also unlock the evolutions as well.
Yeah, correct.
Afterwards.
Yeah.
too.
Once you hit 5
Which
stars.
are
do evolve,
remixes, remasters of
Yeah.
the tape.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which is
very
cool.
The whole thing,
is.
I feel like it's very sellable. You know, like the whole product is a sellable product. Like it would be so cool as a kid to have a cassette tape like these days, a cassette player and a cassette tape that potentially could even like play for a short period of time with the music that would like be a theme song to that creature that you then have on the tape or something. That'd be pretty wild. And then to also get a toy with it would be cool. But the creatures are very different. The whole concept is different, and the cassette tape is just the super vibe. Like the stickers and everything, it's just a wild ride. Like all of it put together, it's just a really well packaged sort of product, I think.
Yeah, like they've found a theme and they've been consistent with it, and not like you were saying, Brady. It's not like moments in Stranger Things, like especially at like the start of season 3 where they go to the mall and all that, and everything is so 80s. It's like, hey, do you remember the 80s? This is a lot more like, oh yeah, remember vibing out to cassettes? That was pretty cool, eh? And it's just kind of like that, and it's just subtle nods as you go along, and the soundtrack accommodates that. Even the visual style is kind of like that because it's in that pixel art style, but it's not inherently just like sold to that either, because there's some really cool elements, like some of the archangels that you'll fight later on. I don't know if you've gotten to them, but they use different, like, not necessarily graphics engines, but they're different assets. And like there's one that's in a 3D art style very similar to like Final Fantasy, like the early PlayStation Final Fantasies. So it's like I don't know, 30 poly archangel, and it's like, that's cool. Like it's a completely different visual style in the same game, and yeah, like that. And it's a really consistent theme. It's one of the best soundtracks I've ever heard in a video game, like hands down.
Absolutely,
It's
yeah.
way
The
up there.
soundtrack is so good. Before we quickly move on from that whole you level up yourself, not them, I just want to say, as someone who's did collect a lot of the Pokemon, I think I got up to 500 and something. Like I was up to date when there was that many out. And then they released the next 2 games, adding another 100 in each game. And then I couldn't be... But as someone who did that and is now beyond catching them all, I'm actually a little bit more inclined with the cassette base, purely because you don't have to then spend a million years training them to make them usable. The fact that you're the level and you can transform into them, have their abilities, their type advantage or disadvantage depending on what's going on, makes me want to actually catch them when I run into them. Because when I play Pokemon, I could not give a stuff about anything that's not going to help me immediately.
Yeah,
because I don't
exactly
care
right.
anymore.
Yeah,
like,
you're done.
Yeah.
You've done all the hard work, and now you're just catching more. And it's like, now I have to
Well,
level them
especially-
up to be useful.
yeah, you go backwards because you're like, I'm missing like one thing of this, and you go back. It's like level 5. So first you've got to find a way to catch that by like finding some Pokemon you've got that can just not kill it in one hit, and that's all just boring, and I don't care. Like,
Yeah, which
no,
actually,
it's cool that
speaking
you're the
about
level.
The like low level thing. One really cool thing about cassette beasts is during
It
your
scales,
record,
right?
well, not necessarily, like it scales based on area, but
yeah,
one of the really cool things is that you can kill a beast while you're recording it. So
yes,
you can start recording, and one of your characters will start the record process. Then you use the other one, and you just dead set neck it. Doesn't matter what level the opposing one is. You just hammer it, and it increases your capture percentage no matter what. And so that is a really cool approach, because it means that, especially in instances where you're fighting something really rare or really difficult to keep, it's not, you've just lost, congratulations, get, you know?
Yeah.
It's a really cool approach to that. And
You don't have to do the whole save standing in front of the legendary thing in case you accidentally kill it.
Yep, I remember.
Which is the
doing
old
that.
Pokemon way. None of that.
The other
just
thing that we were going to talk about was the during the fights with it's gone. Never mind. Don't about it.
During the fights, are we talking about fusions?
We are talking about fusions. That's the word. I was like, I
Cool.
can't even think about how to describe this.
Yeah, yeah.
The merging of two people. Yeah.
Not necessarily just people.
Oh.
You can get a dog companion later. His name's Barkley.
That's
What?
sick.
Yeah, it's the
How
fucking
many
greatest.
how many cassette beasts are there?
Put me on the spot. 100 and something. And this new patch
Okay,
that
so
just
that's
dropped
okay.
is it
Yeah.
added 8, I think.
That's fine. So when you do a fusion, the two of them actually fuse to look like they've been smashed together, which means while Cassette Beast does have, I guess, a small amount for like in comparison to Pokemon, you have to like times that by itself, I guess. Yeah.
It's quite a lot. Yep.
Yeah.
Fuse
Because
two
they've got
different
the
things.
And you can
potential
fuse two
fusion
the
of
same
all of
too.
them.
Oh wow.
What does that look like? I
They
haven't seen
just
that.
become like a bigger version. So you know when you fight
Okay,
the,
so
like
you've
the
been-
road
yeah.
fusions,
Yeah.
and they're just
Yeah.
like a bigger version of it's the same thing.
Okay.
So
And
yeah,
the other thing,
effectively, like it might not sound like there's a lot to catch, but it's quite a lot of
It is quite.
contenty type thing, I guess you would say. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of available
the other
beasts.
thing is during the fight the strengths and weaknesses of the cassette beast as well.
Oh my
The
God.
types.
Because it's kind of different. So your types are pretty.
It's not your
wild.
basic.
So I think that is next level sort of depth when we start jumping into this world. So
And the way they
Yeah.
interact as well is so f***ing cool.
Yes.
So we don't
Yep.
just have, fire, water, ice. Like, yes, those are elements in the game, but there's extra stuff like there's plastic, glass, glitter. There's, all sorts of stuff that's added in there.
Spectral, I think it is. So like toxic
Spectral?
is
Yeah.
considered impure, so it messes up the like internal integrity of a spectral type. Or like it's very bizarre the way they've got these. Like it's really cool the way they interact. But yeah, like impure things affect the spectral ones, and then I think you've got written fire melts plastic, but then the plastic becomes toxic,
Yes.
which is like
so it kind of changes.
really cool. That's not something in Pokemon. In Pokemon, you just get effective or not effective.
Yeah, and then there's other things that like I've always wished for. That's like when a fire Pokemon attacked a ice Pokemon. Yes, technically that should be super effective, but you would think that ice would then become water to then like reverse that, which
Come
is
back,
totally
yeah.
something that actually happens in Cassette Beasts, but it's never anything that's ever happened in Pokemon. And I get sort of why, because they wanted to keep it simple, but even as a kid I thought that was like that made sense in
Silly.
even Jace Childbrain, like that's a thing. But it's never
Cool
something.
concept though, because it's like the next step, and then you kind of got to. It's almost like playing chess at that point. You've got to think 5 steps ahead. Okay, so yes, it's weak to fire if I hit the plastic thing with my fire. Then it's going to turn into toxic. So then I need to change up my flow to something entirely that is strong against toxic. What that is, I have no idea because I haven't paid enough attention in this game.
Yeah, so
But
you could do something
you
like
hit it
you
with
could bring
that,
out
right?
metal. So metal isn't inherently strong against toxic, but what that does is if toxic hits you and you become poisoned, you also get like a poison coating. So then if anything attacks you with a melee attack, it then gets poisoned.
So
then
it's like a sword getting impregnated with poison, or like dipping an arrow
I
in poison
don't
kind of thing.
impregnate swords, sorry.
Wild. Yeah, I try not to.
That's
We don't condone impregnation of swords on this show.
No.
Thank you.
No, just sentient fleshlights. But yeah, so that interaction is absolutely wild, and it adds like this really unique level of strategy, because that's the whole thing with turn-based combat, is that it's supposed to become strategic. And Pokemon's kind of lost that. And even in the early days, it kind of didn't have that. It was just about knowing what type and what move is stronger, and then you just try and one-shot the enemy, as I've very well learnt with my recent Nuzlocke. But another thing that really comes up with cassette beasts is you don't just have 4 moves, because that really makes Pokemon stale, is that it's like, here's 4 attacks. If you want more, you can swap in and out, but you still got 4 attacks. Whereas cassette beasts is like, here's 83, have fun. But
It's also not just that. The way they work in combat, as opposed to just a certain amount you can use. So Pokemon has, for your benefit, Justin, because I don't think you know this, power points. So it's just like you might be able to use Flamethrower 10 times, and then if you don't heal, you can't use it. Whereas in
so similar to Nexomon when we get to that stage,
Yeah.
like where they have like some sort of a stamina bar of sorts.
No, actually, I would say Nexomon is still better than Pokemon.
yeah, because you've actually got to
the-
go back to a center, or you've got to get a special like elixir called Ether that bumps up your power points.
Yeah, and it's kind of frustrating. So the more powerful ones only have 5 goes, and the weaker ones have like 15 sometimes. But basically in Pokemon, when they run out of every move they can use, they use a move called Struggle, which hurts both you and the enemy. And it's kind of frustrating, because often if you're trying to capture something like a legendary, you might work them down to that 1 HP, and then because you're not trying to kill them any more than that, because you're trying to capture them, they're hitting you constantly, using up their moves. And it can actually get to the point where the stupid uses Struggle because it's got no moves and kills itself. And you're like, guess I'll do this all over again. And it's also just not a very exciting way to do this. The way it works in Cassette Beast is you have AP, I think, ability points,
which is
like
something that you accrue over time, like turn-based RPGs.
But again,
like
brings
Fallout.
more of that chess element in, right? Exactly. More of that strategy, because you go, I'm going to use the ones that don't cost me much so I can build up more so I can get to my good attack. Or maybe you go the other way and you go balls in, you're going, I'm going good attack, and then I'm going to chip away at them with the weak ones, whatever you want to do. But you have choice and strategy and things to do that are more fun than I'll just beat the hell out of them fast and hard. Like, it's,
And then let's talk about one other element that comes into that as well, is passives. So with, I think it started in Generation 2 of Pokemon. They added in passive abilities for certain Pokemon, like Intimidate, where it would come out and a Pokemon would immediately drop the defense of... Is it defense or attack on it? Whatever.
It's like if you intimidate it, it drops. But it's not enough to matter. Like, if you have 80 attack points, Intimidate will drop like 2. Like, it's not really...
But with Cassette Beasts...
Wasn't doing much.
You can apply a sticker to a tape, and it can do stuff like Revenge Strike, where if you get hit, you have a chance to automatically hit back without using a turn, and stuff like that.
Oh, that's cool. Like a reaction.
My favorite is on the sound one that Kaylee.
Yeah.
She's got the sound
Decibel,
type,
I think,
one that's holding a microphone. She's got an ability on that one that on release allows her to multi-hit.
Mm-hmm.
Super helpful if you're running into those like fused monsters and stuff like that. She can do it for like the first three rounds, I think it is. So really good if there's like one strong one and one. I can hit the strong one once and then use her to hit them both, and that's the end of the fight, which is super helpful.
But because these also come with stickers, you can swap these between any of the beasts that it applies to, which gives you a lot more variety, whereas in something like Pokemon, you're sort of limited. And it's like, oh, well, if I want to use this ability, then I've got to go capture this particular Pokemon to then be able to do that. Whereas this, it's like, oh, well, I've got a choice of like 30. I'll just catch one I like, put the sticker on it, call it a day. That's pretty much it. So it gives you a bit more flexibility and adds to that very chess element, you know? And like we keep drawing that parallel, but it's because it becomes more and more strategic the more they add this flexibility and constant moving dynamic. And I think that's really one thing that they've done great. And ultimately, I think
It's
this
so
is
fun. Like genuinely fun. So
Yeah.
like sometimes you don't just take on that strategy because you need to. Like it's not like I come up against something super hard and I'm like, all right, I'm going to plan those 10 moves ahead chess style. Sometimes I'm just in a weak fight and I'm like, hey, I wonder if I do this, will then I be able to do this and this and this and this. So like my my Spectre one has ritual, which means that if I use that, the first time it gets killed, it'll come back to life. Super cool move. Quite a high AP. So like, then you got to think, how do I hit things while getting to that so I can use it as fast as possible to make sure I don't get knocked out. Yeah. So like these things are really cool. So sometimes it's just fun to play it in the strategic way, not just it's cool that it's there, which it is. But it adds so much more fun to the game that is very much missing from Pokemon. In Pokemon, all I ever feel like doing in a fight is get rid of them, get rid of them, get rid of them.
Yeah.
I want to get out of
Or
this.
try and catch it, whatever. I think probably like one of the last points before we move on to the next is the modes that you're now trying out.
Yes. Yeah.
Jace,
Well,
because
worth
you
mentioning.
you like your challenges, and they obviously have played a lot of Pokemon in the past,
Mm-hmm.
and so they know from those how to structure a good challenge, and they've obviously learned from past developers of. It wasn't the game, right? For people who weren't playing Pokemon created some of these.
Yes.
Is
So
that right? From back in the day.
the whole thing is, so like I did my Nuzlocke, Brady link right there. Cool. Thank you.
Boom.
And a Nuzlocke challenge is like a self-imposed challenge, kind of like, you know, Dark Souls SL1 and all that, where the challenge is self-imposed, so you're the only one, like you have to follow that rule. Whereas what they've done with Cassette Beasts is they've added the capability that you can do permadeath. So if your cassette dies, too bad. They've added a randomizer, which is another thing that's huge in Pokemon and similar games. And that randomizer has all different levels. You can randomize items, beasts, you name it. I've got mine currently set to full randomize everything out. It's great. I ran into a Bulletino like right at the start of the game, so I've got that like super dash straight away.
Oh, that's sick.
Nice.
Wow.
That's awesome.
And yeah, cool like that. But they've also even added a speedrun timer, which for people who are interested in speedruns, that's not my thing. My brain too slow for speed. But people who are into that, that's awesome because that timer's built into the game, so you don't have to worry about a timer crashing or anything like that. And if you're someone who wants to play on Switch or something, that's built in. You can just fucking turn on a speedrun timer and you can crack on that way. So it's really cool. They've added some functionality for people like myself that like a bit of a challenge, and yeah, I'm all about it. So Cassette Beasts gets 85 thumbs up from me, and so far it might actually be my game of the year.
Oh, damn.
Ooh.
Like
Take.
there really hasn't been a whole lot to compete with it though. So like, and
Yeah, I have a
still-
spicy Final Fantasy 16 review coming up in future episodes that we'll discuss that.
no spoilers because it'll be 16 years before I get the game.
Yeah, I'll be on Final Fantasy 22.
Yeah, thanks.
It's
Man.
like what's
Appreciate that.
XXXII.
All right.
Then we can talk about it.
So, we're gonna shift to idiot of the week moment. I think that's where we're going to split this app right up the guts. And we're going to go idiot of the week. I'd like to nominate my dog Barlin. He is the stupidest guy around. He's hilarious though. And like I usually go out and I play with him each afternoon after work and things like that. He loves catching balls and he is a Great Dane. And that means I have I think it's a netball. It came with the house, whatever. And it's half deflated. So
Did it?
yeah, it was in my yard, therefore came with the house. They also left a bed in my house, so we had free bed.
That's so random.
Did you check there's not money in it? Or a corpse?
Did you check that you own this house?
I definitely own the house. I've got the title.
Someone comes back from like a long holiday and they're just like,
The title?
what the fuck is going on?
Tassie gives out things like you're now Lord.
Yeah. Well, so Brady, if you ever owned
Lord
a house,
Snacks.
you'd understand that. But
I do understand it, but it's just more funny to imagine Lord Snacks of the island of Australia.
That should be like the name of my property. I'm gonna look into
whole
that.
thing.
Yeah. Lord Snacks of the island of Australia. Perfect. Mwah. But
I want a street sign. We'll make up a street sign.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that.
We'll beat the Welsh.
So my dumbass dog loves to catch balls, and there is a volleyball netball. Like, it's a full-size ball. He can actually catch that in his mouth. However, he's not always great at that. And this evening, I just booted the ball with full force, and it just straight into his face. And I also happened to film it in slow motion with my phone. And just the look on his face. He very clearly tried to catch it, but it was after it had already bounced off his face.
It's way too slow, eh? Way too slow.
Yeah, he's a big dumb dog.
How close were you to have booted this ball? Because on camera, it looks like you are like 2 feet
It
away
looks
from
like
this
you're
dog.
right in front of him.
So that's the other part of it, right? Is he doesn't understand how to go away. So he chases the ball and then stands like a foot away from it. So I usually try and
dogs do that.
fake kick so that he steps back. And he did that, but not far enough. And he's quick enough that he will try and goalie, just try and block the ball. But this time he blocked it with his face.
That makes sense.
In pure genius Great Dane form.
That's brilliant. That's
cool.
So that's my idiot
I
of the
think
week.
that's
So
a good idiot of the week.
I think, was it you, Justin, who also wanted to bring up an idiot of the week?
Yep, it's a 2 for this time. So I recently acquired a new camera, which is fantastic. And I sent Jace a message because I knew that he has cameras. He does have a couple of those.
1 or 2.
And
yeah.
I was like, hey, this is pretty dusty. Do I clean it with isopropyl alcohol? Do I clean the lens with that? Because I feel like that's a thing you can clean a lens with, right? And I immediately didn't wait for a response. So I just got out the ISO and got the cloth. And to start with, I did actually douse the cloth and I wiped the LCD screen clean on the back. And then I got the message ding as I flipped the camera around to wipe the lens. And he's like, no!
So
I'm like, oh!
For those who aren't aware, so it's not the worst thing in the world. It probably could have been okay. But so the thing is, there are special coatings on the lenses and things like that. And application of alcohol can wear away at those coatings. So especially if someone else had done it previously, he could have just completely f***ed the image on his lens. The other thing is, he also did his LCD. And what that does to LCDs is really interesting because it eats plastic. You dumb man. Jesus Christ.
I didn't even tell you that
All right.
part before.
No, you didn't. But
shit.
on the upside, if it was going to eat away at the plastic, it would have done so already.
Look, I mean, I haven't looked at it since. So if I have. Like, I put it down. I was like, oh, well, this is clean now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's clean. That's the upside. It's clean.
Yeah. I can't see
Well,
anything
there's
through the
plastic
camera
there.
anymore, but it's clean.
Well,
So for those
Well,
following
shit,
at
if we're
home, just...
Hang on, if we're gonna have multiple submissions,
Oh,
I got one of me getting. Yeah, I got one of. Well, you guys like it when I get hurt.
I do like that.
This is
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
yep.
Yeah. So, started a new job and they have a sandwich press, as a lot of places do. The girls who work there kept complaining that when they put down basically the order dockets to the kitchen, they always nick it and they get hurt. So I was like, well, I'm gonna help these guys out and start the new job off on a good foot. So I moved it. Didn't think about that very well because all I've done all week is fuck myself up.
Genius.
Yeah.
Stop
I just
leaning on the job. You got time to lean.
No,
you got time
I
to
don't.
clean.
It's at the exact height that now when I reach over to get the order docket they put down where I moved something so they wouldn't get hurt, I consistently hit it on the way back.
So, you know what? You mentioning that you're doing at a new job brings up our fourth idiot of the week.
Oh,
So,
there's not even 4 idiots here.
I know, I'm idiot
How does
too.
this happen?
So,
I guess you did put your dog in it, so there are 4
yeah,
idiots.
yeah, so
Yeah, that's true.
it's totally relevant. So,
What's my cat done recently?
probably ate the snake, who knows?
Should I have
The one
checked
right
on the
next to your
snake in a
child's
while?
bed.
Yeah.
We moved it.
So,
Every basement dwellers, we moved the snake.
yeah, it's now
child.
in
It
the
was-
crib. Keeping the child
Because
warm.
The child is inside of the snake.
It's just the
one
cartoon
and the
where it's like,
same.
Yeah.
One in the
It
same.
was getting cold, so they put the child in the snake, and now everyone's warm.
Insulation, I like it.
So
all right, idiot. Let's go.
I used to be a body piercer, as many of you may know. And when I first started my first day as a body piercer, end of the day comes, you know, I'm all excited, I'm all chipper. And my boss is like, oh, can you bring in the A-frame sign that was sitting out on the street? And I was like, yeah, sure. Lean the A-frame sign. So if you're familiar with them, they're the signs that sort of go down in an A.
They
And
stand like a letter A.
yeah. And
Yeah.
there's like a little bridge thing that you knock up and they collapse and you can bring them inside. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, I leaned it backwards onto one side and then flicked up the bracket. The whole thing closed on my hand and it tore a lot of skin off one of my fingers. And so I had to go inside and get medical attention on my first day as a body piercer. Yeah.
You
That's always
pierced yourself
so
by accident on your first day after work.
It was closer to amputation than piercing.
Jesus Christ.
But yeah,
Cool.
that was my idiot of the week many
You know
years
what?
ago.
I want a comment based vote, and maybe we'll post it up on Twitter and stuff as well, and we'll be like, watch this episode and tell us who actually deserves the title of idiot of the week this week.
They're
It's
totally
either
on
Barlin
the
the dog.
Yeah.
Oh, dogs always win. But anyway, Barlin the dog, Jace the accidental amputee, me the nice guy finishing last, and Justin the idiot who can't wait for a text.
The impatient cleaner.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I would be very curious to see. However,
Nexomon extinction.
yes, we're moving on. Now this was your choice, wasn't it, Brady? Nexomon. Was that
his
you?
It
choice,
was, yeah. It was,
Yep.
in theory, so I didn't realize we'd all delve into all games, so I thought we'd just pick one each. And you had showed me this awesome one that was
I
on
was picking a new
Steam.
one. I didn't even pay enough attention to you to know that I had chosen the same.
That's
That's
completely
true. That's how
reasonable,
str-
though.
Yeah.
So when Cassette Base came out, you told us, and I'm pretty sure initially it was just on
PC.
Steam.
Yeah, it was PC first, then eventually.
So
here.
it looked cool. I watched the trailer, but I was like, okay, well, if he's going to do that, I'll go find something else. And something that's not going to take up a vast amount of my time that I need to sit at a console. Pretty cool idea to do the mobile route in my world.
'Cause
Because
what
I
else
do
do
a
you
lot
do
of
while
dog walking
taking-
and stuff.
Yeah. He does a lot
I
of
send
taking
pictures of
shits,
my
so-
to your mum.
Yeah. So I picked
telling her that.
Nexomon.
Okay,
It
she's
came
gonna
up
hit me so
pretty-
hard.
Bro.
It came up pretty easy. There was 2. So this is actually the sequel to a game. So this is Nexomon Extinction is the one we played. It came out in August 2020. Now it's across many consoles. We've got Switch, PS4, Android. It's on Windows, Xbox One, and it does work on Mac iOS. Although I don't
Mac
wanna see
OS. So that's the
Mac OS,
as in the
Yeah,
desktop.
sorry.
Yeah.
So Mac, as in the desktop. But obviously, I was playing on iOS, playing on
I heard it works
mobile.
on MS-DOS as well. If you've got
Probably works better on that than it does on an iPhone.
3.5 floppy disks, but it's like 17 of them to finish the game.
I could see if I could get it to work, but I'm pretty sure it won't.
It'd be a wild ride. It'll just be text-based.
Yeah.
So this one,
Complicated text-based.
I'll say, is much closer to Pokemon in many ways. That you are capturing beasts. It's a collection-based thing. It is still turn-based. You've got 4 moves per creature. There are a couple differences. We mentioned a stamina bar earlier. Instead of building up singular AP points,
And the
it's a bar,
stamina
and every
resets
move
as well.
it does reset. And every move is worth a certain amount of stamina. And once you get down to the bottom, you don't get to do the move if you attempt to. It says they're tired and then builds it back up a little bit.
A little bit.
So I think it counts as like a rest as such. Other than that, I would say some of the best differences are that there's a much better storyline than any Pokemon game has come out in a long time.
100%.
There have a couple other things going on, and both games get this credit. I know Pokemon in the early days did things like Rock Smash, strength to move boulders and stuff, but it feels like in the recent ones they've ditched a lot of that in favor of you can fly and jump really high,
Yeah.
and I don't give a
So
at all. But both Nexomon and Cassette Beast have so much more interaction with the environment outside of combat that I think it's so much more fun. Those are the big ones outside of just the comedy for me. And then we'll explore
yeah, so
the actual...
I think the big thing with Nexomon for me is that it's very much like, at least at face value, it's very much legally distinct from Pokemon. Like,
Oh
Yeah.
man, it's walking the line every minute of it.
yeah, so like, while it is very, like, the more you spend time in it, the more you're like, okay, this isn't just a blatant ripoff. There is an intelligent storyline there. It's not necessarily as mature as Cassette Beasts, but it is a solid, cohesive storyline with some interesting twists and turns along the way.
And some funnies.
And
I find their funnies are quite good.
Their funnies outclass Cassette Beasts and Pokemon by a long shot. Like,
Yeah.
it
They
is...
do. The fourth wall breaks,
Yeah.
the like constant, like they're a self-aware thing as well.
Yep.
Like they make fun of themselves constantly for, like even the beginning one, where you're setting off as 3 orphans into the wild, and one of them's like, "Is this a good idea?" And they're like, "Yeah, you'd be fine." And they're like, "Have you ever played a JRPG in your life?"
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like a good idea to send orphans into the woods. Just saying, we're probably going to get attacked. And then immediately you get attacked. and he's like, I knew this would happen. Yeah.
Which is... It's so ironic that that's the game that does it, because in Pokemon games, you literally have video game consoles in your house. So you should be familiar
in the
with
first
video
one.
game concepts. So in most of the early Pokemon games, I don't know if it's a thing still, but they have consoles.
It
There
is.
was ones with like the GameCube,
It's a Switch now.
SNES,
Yeah.
NES, all sorts of and like
Yeah.
it was,
It
set up
was
in your house.
the N64 in the first game, I think. But
No, it was NES. I
it
believe.
is. Oh, might have been, yeah. But the thing with Pokemon doing that, your protagonist never speaks.
Yeah.
So they can't make that joke.
But no one else makes the reference. What I'm saying is that like
True.
video
true.
games
Yeah,
do
yeah, true.
exist, And so the only fourth wall break in Pokemon that I've ever seen is there is one building in the original Pokemon, might also be in Fire Red, Leaf Green, but there's a building where the developers of the game
speak to the game
and
creators.
that's pretty cool. But that's more like an Easter egg than like a fourth wall break.
Yeah, because you have to like go around the back and get up the top, and then there's a dude who's like, "I designed you," and you're like, "Cool."
Yeah.
You get nothing for it. Like I think there might be TM or like a one rare candy or something, but like
Yeah.
it's a fun, cute thing that they threw in. They didn't have to, I guess.
Whereas Nexomon is very blatantly like, not only is it just obviously funny, and like there are some great examples. Like there's one tree that is just horrifying looking with like fangs and it's like, you know, get me these Nexomon. I just want them to be friends. And you're like, I don't trust you. And like your companion also is like, don't think we should trust this. And then you actually get him the Nexomon and he's just friends with them. But it's like,
That's great. I never went
did
back.
that
I never
too.
went back.
yeah.
He has like a weird carnival thing set up when you go back. They're having like a full festival party,
Yeah.
That's awesome.
and he asks you to bring him
That's
more.
so cool.
Yeah.
And so they,
It would be so good if that kept going and you kept bringing them more, and then eventually he just slaughtered the entire park. Like he was like, "Haha! Finally!"
speaking of
Just
fourth
be
wall
like a
breaks,
double thing.
Brady's fourth wall broke. But yeah, so that's one thing that Nexomon really does well is its comedy. It's well timed, well executed, it's funny. One of the things I didn't like though is the visuals. Now I've got to talk about this. Like,
Yeah,
so it's not because it's also a mobile game, because like visually that's not the problem. It's more that it looks like that fucking horrible game that is advertised everywhere, Hero Wars. It has that about it, and it looks like
When you sent the album art, I was like, "Oh yeah, okay, I totally get that." It almost looks like it's from the same people.
Yeah,
like it's just
but
ridiculously
Hero
similar,
Wars is
so-
basically just a like scam title that's just designed to harvest money off people. But yeah, this is a really cool game. It just looks like it's built on that same graphics engine. Once you look past that though, there is a really, really good game there. And
yeah.
even though I don't hold it in as high esteem as I do Cassette Beasts, I still think it is miles above anything I've seen from Pokemon in a long time. Like,
Oh, 100%. It definitely, it's all over it. Even to, again, just the outside of combat stuff. I'm gaining abilities as I go that let you do stuff. They're a little silly. They're a little simplistic, but they're there. It's more fun in, you know, doing stuff in the environment. Again, not as good as Cassette Beast, but it's cool. It exists.
well,
You can do stuff.
it's also a good way of like walling you off from things that you're not supposed to access without feeling like, you know, it's just a brick wall where they've just got a guy that's like, you know, like
Yeah.
it's
So I will add that it was kind of semi-walled off for us until we paid for it on the phone. So like quite literally, it was just like, I can't go here. Now you need to buy it. Yeah, but the upside was it was only like $5. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll buy it. Whatever, I'll pay you $5.
I actually
Shit.
forgot that I did that at first. and
Yeah,
I was
same.
like, oh.
Yeah, until I just
be
said
honest,
the word wall,
like,
I was like, actually,
Is
I didn't
there
hit
a
that wall.
cost? Does anyone know? Is there a cost to listing something on the Apple, or what is it? The Apple.
like the
I mean, I would
stores.
assume, yeah.
The
So
Apple's-
Surely.
not
And
necessarily. So there is a cost. Like they take a percentage of income, and
Yeah.
I believe both Apple and Google require, like, they have to go through like verification checks to make sure that they're okay with the software on their platform. But that's about it.
Oh, okay.
and so like,
yeah, 'cause
for
I thought maybe
sales-
they were doing
yeah.
that
Oh, sorry, go
Just
on.
to cover
just
the
to
shit.
try and like
Yeah.
cover back the money from. But I mean, I don't mind paying for a game anyway, especially if I'm going to invest. Like, honestly, like I put, I think 12 hours into Nexomon,
Mhm.
roughly. That's
I
well
put
and truly
30.
above 5. Holy,
Yeah, but it's like it's so
let's-
casual though. Like I don't dive into like it
Yeah,
too
no, I
heavily.
get that. I mean, like,
you
if
know?
you think about how much we put into, like, Pokemon Go back in the day and stuff like
Think
that.
about
like,
how
it's-
much you're
it's
just
not-
on your phone in general. Like I would just be waiting for something to happen, and I'll just pull my phone out, and instead of being like on the socials, I would just jump straight onto Nexomon for like 10 minutes at a time, like in between things.
Yeah.
So, like and then when I
Yeah.
don't feel like doing any work, just do 8 hours of Nexomon. Like so it didn't really take that long to get up there when I'm at work. Like,
Yeah.
no, I'm kidding. Your face was so puzzled there, Brady. You're like, wait, what? 8 hours of work?
You only work 8 hours?
Yeah.
Oh.
No. Yeah. So I think it's got a lot of pluses to it. I know it's extraordinarily close to walking the line sometimes where it's too close to Pokemon. Like the fact that it's not a sphere that you throw at them, it's a prism. Like it's like, okay, cool. That's a thing. I'm throwing a pyramid instead of a ball. I get that. Like it's only
What are you talking
difference
about?
is its shape.
Nexo-traps are way different to Pokeballs.
Oh, totally.
You shoot them out of a
totally.
cool glove.
And there's elemental styles which will increase your chances of catching them.
No,
with
they
certain types
they
and
have
all
that
the
in
rest of it,
Pokemon too.
I know.
They do have that in
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, right.
Like, and you have the golden Nexotrap,
While
of
we're
course,
on that-
which is
while we're
somewhat
on that,
rare,
though,
but not as rare as a gold.
As the Master
Great
Ball,
Ball.
yeah, yeah.
Did
whatever it is.
enjoy-
Yeah.
Did enjoy getting to see the catch percentage before you attempt.
That's exactly where I was going with this. Yeah. So
Yeah.
your catch percentage, which would also increase if you fed the Nexomon a certain type of food, and so you could literally click on each one that you had, and I think I picked up like 15 different types of like Asian cuisine. By the end.
I just had a whole.
and a fucking donut.
I had a whole thing of tacos, and I didn't use any of them because I had enough golden Nexo traps that I just used those.
Threw those at him instead.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
for those unaware, for my Nexomon run, just because I thought not, I decided to only catch Ghost Nexomon. So I was complete Ghost team the entire game, and it was totally worth it and wasn't that difficult.
That's awesome.
It's
And
not a
you guys caught
particularly
legendaries, and I
difficult
didn't catch
game.
any still.
Sorry, what was that, Brady?
Yeah, I caught. It's not a particularly difficult game to play that with. Like it lends itself to how you want to play.
Yeah.
Not always easily, but like for the most part, yeah.
I think combat-wise, it's
that being
very
said,
much...
by the way, Justin,
it's very much like Pokemon. Like, you can brute force it as long as you, like, just put a lot of work
Enough
in.
HP to survive.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, if you put
Yeah.
enough focus into one mon, then, yeah, you can just brute force through any type
Yeah.
difficulty.
Yeah, I had a mon that would heal itself, and in its heal, it would also boost up its attack power again as well. So it was completely like healing itself quite a large chunk, and its attack power was healing as well. So I never got tired, and I also never got killed. So by that point, it was just I was just using the one. So I did sort of pigeonhole myself after a while to creating one Nexomon that was extraordinarily powerful, and I just had a team of 5 kids that were just sort of along for the ride. But the other thing is you can assign them like boosters as well. So I just had XP boosters galore across the whole team to try and keep them on some sort of even playing field with this one super boosted level 60 Nexomon. But everything else was slowly sort of getting knocked behind. And that threw out
It
the
is
balance of
true,
the game
though.
quite a bit by the point where I'm up to now, where everything is scaling. What it feels like it is it's scaling very close to my high end and not enough to my lower end. So then it's kind of becoming difficult for my high end to keep up. It can't quite heal enough. It gets knocked out, and then I've got these pieces that will just die in one hit each.
So
one will come in, it'll get hit. Next one will come in, it'll get hit. And I'm like,
That's
okay.
that's the thing that's common in Pokemon games, and definitely is the case with this one, is that like for most of the game it's like, you know, the scaling goes up gradually with you, but towards the end game it just spikes massively. Like I said, like I focused mostly on like I had a ghost team and I focused mostly on one particular ghost, and towards the end, it was starting to get to a point where I was like, oh, and I did have to use like resurrections and stuff on it mid-fight, because like with some of those end game bosses, it gets pretty full on.
That's another thing. I haven't had to really buy anything except for more Nexo traps. So, and I think that's just to pure laziness because I didn't really feel like feeding the Nexomon before I caught them. So I'd have to buy a lot of traps. But apart from traps, I haven't bought a thing in the game yet.
Yeah,
30
I
hours
just
in,
got
so...
I bought the cores and that's about it. Like the
Yeah,
experience.
well, I made
share
And
them
cores.
that's not really buying.
so-
You just trade it in for the materials you find, which are like these shards
Yeah,
that you
true.
hack rocks up into.
Yeah. But all in all, really enjoyed it. The fact that it was on a
Yeah.
mobile game for me was kind of handy because sometimes I just don't feel like sitting down and really committing some time to something. And so, the non-committal idea of it, just do it whenever I feel like it, is great. I can do it whenever I want as well. So,
But conversely,
Awesome.
Bizarre unique,
go on, Brady.
bizarre unique plus that I got from it. So I have an old phone that I sometimes use to just film a second angle of something if I happen to be filming stuff with my phone.
OnlyFans.
Because Nexomon uses my Apple gaming login, which is a weird thing Apple have. They have a game center for everything you play. Pretty much I could pick up my old phone and just play from the exact same spot I was at, and then pick up my new phone and do it. So like if my phone was like running out of battery because I've been using it for work and a whole bunch of other shit, I'd just put it down and play the old phone. Or sometimes I would just pick up the old phone because I was like, hey, the problem with mobile is you get notifications about work and friends and all that you want to deal with when you're gaming.
See, this is
How
why
dare life
So
get
you
in the
can-
way of our Nexomon.
I mute work and I don't have
So-
any friends. Problem solved.
But
Then you
yeah,
get
so
messages
like
from
I will
us, and you're
say
like, oh, shut up.
that was kind of
Non-friends."
a weird plus. I had never thought about playing with mobile gaming because I used to on mobile gaming, but that was kind of fun that I was able to be like, oh, I can just put this down, pick it up somewhere else. That was kind
I'm
of cool.
pretty sure I heard
Just
that you
that's
can,
a unique me thing.
that you can also transfer saves or progress from PC to mobile as well. So
Oh, that's wild.
that's pretty cool if
That's
that's actually the case. And
That's pretty handy.
And like I sort of had the exact opposite experience of Justin. So I don't like to sit around on my phone. The only time I really use my phone is to scroll TikTok while I'm taking a crap. Like that's legit it. So
I know
Yeah, that's a-
because
that's
I
a
get
quick
your
shit, man. I
the
like taking my
TikToks you
time.
share to me are about twice a day.
yeah.
So I
Yeah,
can always
yeah.
I'm like, oh,
At
Jason's
least
taking
you know
a
it's regular.
Yeah.
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 Well,
That's
high,
regular, bro.
high fiber diet, bruv. It's all fiber, baby.
So I wake up at 5, right? And my routine is I take before I go to work, and that'll do me for the entire day and night. So I've only got one time to indulge on some real screen time. So
Bro.
I take that for a little bit longer, and I enjoy it.
Yeah,
It's
no.
a diversion from the show, but I think you might need some help.
Yeah.
What? It's a day. What's wrong with that? How often does everyone put it in the comments?
Yeah. Drop your regularity in the comments, friends.
It's just gonna be I vote for dog. I 3 times a day.
That's the comments that we're really trying to bring, though. I vote for dog
That's all
and
we
how
really
many
want.
times a day people.
That's all we need to know is how many times.
But like,
All right.
all in all, like when it comes to my gaming experience, I don't like to do like 5 minutes at a time. Not unless it's something like Dark Souls or Elden Ring where I'm like focusing on a boss and I'm gonna get really off and I'm constantly resetting and then I'm like, okay, put it down, I'll walk away. If it's something that's sort of story driven and it's not something where I'm just gonna constantly hit roadblocks, I want to sit there and engage in. And Nexomon for PC, because I got it on Steam, I had to pay $30 for the privilege, but it was totally worth it, I think. It was like $30 is still like a third of retail game prices, so I don't really have an issue.
On PC.
Yeah,
On PS5, it's literally like less than a quarter, I would say.
yeah, I'd have to remortgage
Yeah,
my house to buy a game
We're
for
up
PS5.
around $120 a game at the moment.
Yeah, that's Oz dollars. So for anyone out there not watching us locally,
Yeah.
yeah,
Not
great.
But $30, I think it was worthwhile. So far, I've played 21 hours or thereabouts, and I've finished the game. I could see myself at some point perhaps coming back, especially if some Crazy Ked suggested a challenge for it, I could give that a crack. But yeah, like it was a good game. It was worth the money, but it also allowed me to sit there and have a good time. So I think being multi-platform from mobile and PC is really to its benefit. Like
Agreed.
whatever your purpose is, I think it's got you covered. And realistically, both the games we've discussed tonight, all over anything Pokemon's done for a long ass time. Pokemon either need to pick up their game.
Game Freak, pull your finger out of it. And also just remember that I know you're aiming mostly at kids. You did that originally, and now we're all in our 30s.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can. I've played a few. This is another episode, but I've played a couple bootleg Pokemons.
Insurgents.
Where they've like. Yeah, Insurgents, but not just Insurgents. I played other ones as well. There was one back in the day, Pokemon. It was another word for brown, I think. I can't remember, but you start out with a Larvitar. Yeah, it was
you
probably
only play
Pokemon
it twice a day.
Yeah, but it was. There are just way better games made by fans at this stage using the same material because the storylines are up to date with our ages. And I think Pokemon need to find that for themselves.
Honestly,
but Nintendo are notoriously bad for this. That's why Mario's the same still. Sonic, they continually ruin. It's just not.
But in all honesty,
I don't know if it'll happen.
Pokemon gets released regularly enough that they could go both ways with it. Like they release enough titles that you could have.
Oh yeah.
You know, say Pokemon Shield and then Pokemon Double Barrel Shotgun. You know, so you know that there's a target audience for each one, right? But
yeah,
like you could do that, and it would give adults a more engaging story. Like Cassette Beasts and Nexomon are both more mature stories than anything Pokemon offer. Neither of them are inherently like sexual or overly violent or anything like that.
No,
there is some
They're
reference
just
to death in both of them, but nothing horrific, nothing outside of like the original Pokemon games. It's just, it's sort of that, and there's like relationship building in Cassette Beasts. I think there might be implied sex in there too, but that's about it. It's very implied, as in, like
the merging thing and whatnot. Saying, that was awful.
Mate, there's more. There is more.
Yeah, okay.
But it doesn't show anything or anything like that. It's sort of like it fades to black, and that's sort of it.
So for a younger audience, both accessible. Nexomon probably more so, just because it is on mobile as well, but also because it's just a little bit more child-based. But
it gives you a
slightly more adult.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't feel like it's targeting an 8-year-old perpetually. It at least trusts you to be enough of an adult to understand what's going on. And to its credit, I think both games are fantastic, and if you've got the time and money, I recommend that everyone go out and grab both.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely recommend either over any of the latest Pokemon games as well, which is their biggest highlight recommendation because I have played them all, and I haven't even finished the most recent one. Must be coming up on its 10 months,
right?
Yeah, like
it'd be close.
Like Scarlet, I like halfway through its whole thing. Couldn't be bothered. These two games, I'm keen to just keep going, even after doing this review. It's not just for content. I enjoy the hell out of these games.
Yeah.
At its cheapest point, if you have a bunch of consoles and a phone, you could get this for free on Game Pass currently for Cassette Beasts, and Nexomon, you could play it for free to a degree, or for $5 on a phone. So really, if you have an old Xbox
and Cassette Beasts was
a phone,
$25, I think, on Switch as well.
Switch.
Yeah, so
you're still talking $50 worst case scenario for the two games. Like, you're not going to break the bank on these things, but you are at least going to spend 20 to 30 hours on each. So
easily.
And happily go through that and be like, cool. I never played a Pokemon type game before. I never played a Pokemon game before this. I understood the premise of them, of course, but now I'm very much interested. But now knowing that these things are sort of different and are an improved version of, I wouldn't go back and play a Pokemon game now. I would be more interested in playing another Pokemon type game.
Which
Go back and forward 3 times
Which-
in one paragraph.
Which brings me
Yeah.
to the next point. If anyone watching this right now has suggestions for other Pokemon clones or Pokemon
Yeah.
likes or whatever you want to
Correct.
call them, shoot them out. We'll play them. If you got a challenge for them too, shoot them my way or Brady's way, and then
Yeah, he
he'll
loves
never
that
do
shit.
it because he's slow.
Yeah, Jace loves that. I'll probably look it up at least.
Yeah, if it's on mobile, he might play it for 30 minutes a day.
And I'll double check
Totally.
that there's
Yeah, only in the
enough,
morning.
there's enough weeb content in the game, and then I'll decide whether I'm going to play or not. But yeah, definitely.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks to everyone that stopped by. This has been another Basement Discourse.